This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Faye. How are you?
Hello, Alma. I am good. And this is Faye Barta from your EBC Talent Bureau, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, a super typhoon that rapidly formed in just 48 hours is now threatening both the Philippines and Taiwan with destructive winds and torrential rains over the coming days.
The death toll from a devastating prison fire in Indonesia has risen to 44, according to the authorities, as families rush to submit DNA samples to identify inmates' remains.
The chemical we found.
A new COVID testing device that uses armpit sweat to take readings is shown in action, checking salespeople for the virus in Thailand's sweltering capital, Bangkok.
And a Phil-Canadian teen sensation, Leila Fernandez, advanced to her first Grand Slam final on Thursday by defeating world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka of Belarus in the US Open semifinals.
First here in the country, a super typhoon that rapidly formed in just 48 hours is now threatening both the Philippines and Taiwan, with destructive winds and torrential rains over the coming days. Now, Shantou was about 580 kilometers or 360 miles southeast of Taiwan's southernmost tip on Friday morning, packing gusts of up to 234 kilometers an hour, according to Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau. The Philippine State Weather, meanwhile, the Pagasa, said the typhoon was expected to graze the northeastern tip of the country later today. The Cagayan governor has ordered government and private sector workers, except those in frontline services, to stay home and fortify their houses. This is according to Rogelio Sending, the provincial information officer. Now, most projections forecast the storm will then continue to swing northeast and could hit Taiwan directly over the weekend. Meteorologists have marveled at how quickly Shantou morphed into a powerful storm after it first emerged on Monday in between Guam and the Philippines. Now, scientists have long warned that typhoons are becoming more powerful and strengthening more rapidly as the world becomes warmer because of man-made climate change. Scientists have long warned that typhoons are becoming indeed powerful, and they are strengthening rapidly because the world is becoming warmer, and this is because of man-made climate change. A super typhoon is also known as a Category 5 hurricane in the U.S., and the Earth tends to experience around 5 storms of that power a year. Meteorologists say that while Shantou is powerful, it is small in size and will be unpredictable.
Now, in the related news, Typhoon Kiko maintained its strength as it threatens extreme northern Luzon, according to the Weather Bureau on Friday, so that is today. And its bulletin, Pagasa, said Kiko packing maximum sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 230 kilometers per hour was last located 235 kilometers east northern of Casiguran, Aurora. Here are the areas under tropical wind signals from DOST Pagasa weather specialist Alzar D. Aurelio. Let's listen.
Dahil sa bagyong Kiko, nag-raise po tayo ng Tropical Cyclone Wind Signal number 3 na ibig sabihin to ay Masungit na panahon, inaasahan po natin yan within the next 18 hours. So ang nasa ilalim ng signal number 3 ay ang extreme northern eastern portion ng Cagayan. Signal number 2 naman, kung saan makakaranas din ang masungit na panahon sa Batanes, Babuyan Islands at nalalabing bahagi ng eastern portion ng Cagayan at northeastern portion ng Isabela. Signal number 1, kung saan ay makakaranas ng mga pag-ulan na may kasamang pagbugso ng hangin sa lalabing bahagi ng Cagayan, northeastern portion ng Ilocos Norte, Apayao, eastern portion ng Kalinga, northwestern at southeastern portion ng Isabela, at eastern portion ng Aurora. Yung makikita mula ngayon hanggang sa paglabas ng PAR si Bagyong Kiko, napanatili niya ang typhoon category. Dahil pa rin sa banta ng ng Bagyong Kiko, ang mga lugar po na sa ilalim ng tropical cyclone wind signal, makakaranas po ng rough to very high seas. So ang taas ng alon nito mula 2.5 hanggang 10 meters. So napakataas po ang mga alon. Kaya lahat po ng klaseng sasakyang pandagat ay bawal pumalaot sa mga lugar nito.
Kiko and severe tropical storm concern, or the name of international or outside the Philippine area of responsibility, are enhancing the southeast monsoon. As such, monsoon rains will be experienced over the western sections of central Luzon and southern Luzon and the Visayas in the next 24 hours, according to Pag-asa. Heavy to intense, with at times torrential rains caused by Kiko, are forecast over Cagayan, including Babuyan Islands, Batanes, and northern Isabela. Moderate to heavy, with at times intense rains, may also prevail over Ilocos region, Cordillera Administrative region, northern and central Aurora, and the rest of Cagayan Valley. Scattered to windspread flooding and rain-induced landslides are possible, especially in areas susceptible to these hazards.
In other news now, Maldives president said the country will not hire foreign workers for jobs that are qualified for their locals, and that he will ensure that the maximum amount of work positions is filled with Maldivian workers. To tell us more, here's Steffi Tiwan, who joining us live. Hello, Steffi.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon. Yes, President Ibrahim Mohamed Soli has stated that foreigners will not be hired for jobs where there are locals who fulfill the requirements for those positions. President Soli made this statement whilst speaking at the ceremony held officially inaugurated the Job Center at R. Ali Fushi as part of the President and the First Lady's ongoing tour at Shabiani and Ra Atoll. President Soli stated during the ceremony that the Job Center in Ali Fushi is the first in a series to be launched nationwide for the purpose of connecting Maldivians seeking job with employers with open positions in their organization. He also stressed the importance given by the current administration to ensure that the maximum amount of position is filled by Maldivian workers, adding that in the future, organizations would be unable to hire foreign workers if there are Maldivians who are registered at job centers that meet the requirements for those positions. To further support his statement, President Soli also highlighted his administration's success in limiting the numbers of foreign workers permits authorized through its commitment to develop local human resources and offer employment opportunities to all Maldivians. However, he acknowledged that there would still be an expected shortage without training and developing Maldivians with the skills and expertise required to fill various positions. To remedy this, he revealed that the government's plan to develop technical and vocational education and training, or TVET, programs and services to provide the necessary skills training and guidelines across the atolls. With this regard, Minister Fayaz Ismael commends a program to train individuals in accounting and also some other sectors, noting that the accounting sector in the Maldives is largely made up of foreigners, with approximately 4,000 foreigners involved in the accounting sector. Minister Fayaz said that an apprenticeship program is set to commence soon, which is aimed of training a large number of locals for the accounting sector, stressing the information technology is also an important sector. Minister Fayaz noted that 200 individuals will be trained in this regard under the apprenticeship program. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Steffi. You stay safe over there, and looking forward to more updates coming from the island nation of Maldives.
Yes, Alma, thank you so much. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Steffi Di Juan. We live in interesting times.
Now from Maldives, we go to Malaysia. The Speaker of the Regional Representatives Council, or DPD, Lanyala Mahamud Mataliti, has asked the government to anticipate the transmission of the MU coronavirus variant by tightening entry routes. In a statement, he said, and I quote, "If MU variant is not anticipated, this variant can transmit in Indonesia, and it is feared that it could cause another COVID-19 tsunami." Now, according to Mataliti, the MU variant is said to have resistance to the vaccine. The variant was first detected in Colombia and has now been confirmed in 39 countries. The World Health Organization, or WHO, has concluded it in the list of variants of interest, or SARS-CoV-2 variants that have the genetic ability to affect the characteristics of the virus.
Meanwhile, mass coronavirus testing and food deliveries are carried out for residents in Bangkok's biggest slum, Klong Tae, by the Bangkok Community Health Foundation. It is a local initiative founded to help the poor communities in Thailand's capital battle of COVID-19. Let's listen.
The issue, especially in a place like Klong Tae, is that there's many people living on a very tight and confined space. In many cases, people are living with 10 people in a house. The house is maybe 20 square meters, which means if one has COVID, the rest has it almost guaranteed. That's why it's so important that we actively go in these communities, try to find COVID, and immediately separate the people out of their houses and actually get them the proper care.
The most important thing is that they treated positive, they didn't have to go back home, because then what good did it do, right? Then they're just going to infect their family members. We had the relationship with 3 local renowned hospitals so they could go to, and so that put their mind at ease that what good does it matter if you're positive if there was no treatment for that.
I'm a flight attendant and still on leave. We are waiting to go back to fly, but in the meantime, I'm just finding the time that I can do something, which is actually, luckily, one of my very good friends introduced this job to join, and I think it's a good program. And when I join, I must say that I feel just it's overwhelmed.
The Klong Tae slum, where an estimated 100,000 people live packed into tiny, overcrowded dwellings, has been a major concern as Thailand battles its third wave of the pandemic. Rice donations, mangosteen juice, and a free lunch were among incentives the charity used to encourage hesitant residents to undergo a swab test. As well as testing, the foundation has been delivering 3,000 meals a day to the community, along with care packages and medications. Donations come from corporations, individuals, and even governments. Now, some give meals they've prepared themselves, others packaged goods or cash.
Now, staying here in Thailand, a bus set up to provide mobile vaccinations begins operation in the Thai capital of Bangkok. Let's take a look.
คนที่เข้าไปฉีดเนี่ยต้องไปเสียบบัตรตรงนี้คือก็เป็นการลงทะเบียนแล้วก็ขึ้นไปฉีดแล้วก็ไปยื่นเอกสารบนโต๊ะใช้คนประมาณ5 คนเองซึ่งถ้าไปตามจุดฉีดต่างๆใช้คน20-30 คนรายเงี้ยมันก็จะเคลื่อนที่วันนี้ถ้าสมมติฉีดตรงนี้200เดี๋ยวเที่ยงเราอาจจะเคลื่อนไปอีกจุดหนึ่งไปฉีดอีก200
ได้รับมากขึ้นครับเพราะชุมชนมันที่ยังเข้าไม่ถึงถ้ามีรถเข้าไปอีกสัก5 คันน่าจะฉีดได้เยอะมากกว่านี้
น่าจะควรทำนาค่ะเพราะว่าหนูโดนเลื่อนมาหลายครั้งอะค่ะก็เลย
The setup aims to help vaccinate people living in the more rural areas of Bangkok and shorten the distance people need to travel to receive a shot. The mobile vaccination unit can provide 1,000 shots a day, and Bangkok's Governor Aswin Kwanwang said the plan is to put more buses into operation. Since April, Thailand has been reeling from a deadly third wave of infections, with more than 1.3 million cases and 13,000 deaths. The kingdom is also experiencing its worst economic performance since the 1997 Asian financial crisis.
Meanwhile, Singapore will from next week begin easing movement restrictions on migrant workers living in dormitories, according to authorities, on Thursday, over a year after they were implemented to curb the coronavirus outbreaks. Now, the vast self-contained dormitory complexes are home to more than 200,000 foreign workers, mainly from South Asia, who work in jobs like construction and maintenance. Virus outbreaks tore through the sites in the early stages of the pandemic, shining a harsh spotlight on the prosperous city-state's treatment of the low-paid migrants. Authorities imposed movement curbs in April last year, and since then, the workers have, for the most part, only been allowed to travel between their dorms and the places of work. Under a pilot program to launch Monday, the Labor Ministry said up to 500 vaccinated workers will be allowed to visit selected locations for 6 hours each week, and they will need to take a virus test before the visit and 3 days afterwards, with the scheme to be evaluated after a month. The decision was taken after vaccination rates among workers living in dorms reached over 90%. But Alex Liu, Vice President of Migrant Rights Group Transient Workers Count 2, he also criticized the plan as not going far enough, as so few workers will be able to participate. The majority of Singapore's virus infections have been among migrant workers, but the city-state has largely been successful at keeping its outbreak in check, reporting only about 70,000 infections and 55 deaths. There has been an uptick in recent weeks, though, driven by the more contagious Delta variant, but most infections have been outside the dorms.
Now, in other news, Ho Chi Minh City People's Committee late Wednesday issued a new decision on COVID-19 prevention and control measures as the city continues to stay under the restrictive Directive 16, with outbreaks still not properly controlled yet. After 2 months of complete shutdowns to deal with COVID-19 outbreaks, restaurants and other food and drink services can now resume delivery of takeaway orders between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. Now, the southern city, currently the COVID-19 epicenter of the country, will allow postal service providers, telecommunications, IT devices and equipment, and office stationery vendors to reopen, and also within the same time frame, and also only for delivery orders. The decision is made as millions of students in the city are starting the new school year via online learning. Establishments producing and trading in pharmaceutical materials, drugs, medical equipment, and medical supplies are allowed to operate from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily to meet public needs.
Back to Singapore, the city-state will start giving coronavirus vaccine booster shots to the elderly and those with weak immune systems, according to officials, as cases rise despite high inoculation rates. Now, the city-state joins a number of countries worldwide in giving a third jab to the most vulnerable groups as it faces a new outbreak driven by the Delta variant. The Health Ministry said an expert committee had recommended the third dose for people aged 60 and above and those with weak immune systems. Health Minister Ong Ye Kung described the decision as a preemptive step before antibodies wane further. For the over 60s, the boosters can be given 6 to 9 months after the second shot, which means as early as this month for some. Now, for those with weak immune systems, it should be administered after 2 months. Immune systems can be weakened by some diseases or by treatments for illnesses such as cancer. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has also approved the third dose for those with weak immune systems and is considering it for the elderly.
In other news, the World Health Organization demanded that rich nations hold off giving COVID-19 booster shots until next year at the earliest. The agencies had already called for a moratorium through this month. Speaking from WHO's headquarters in Geneva, and WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that appeal has been ignored despite severe vaccine shortages in poorer countries. Let's take a look.
So today, I'm calling for an extension of the moratorium until at least the end of the year to enable every country to vaccinate at least 40% of its population. We have been calling for vaccine equity from the beginning, not after the richest countries have been taken care of. I will not stay silent when the companies and countries that control the global supply of vaccines think the world's poor should be satisfied with leftovers.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Faye and I will be back right after this break.
Good vibes kada umaga to get you through your day with a happy heart.
Welcome back to the program. Indonesia's foreign minister says Afghanistan's new government should respect human rights, especially the rights of women, during ministerial talks with Australia held in Jakarta. The Indonesia foreign and defense ministers and their Australian counterparts met on Thursday. Take a look.
Indonesia continues to underline the importance of building an inclusive government in Afghanistan. Indonesia hopes that Afghanistan is not used as a breeding and training ground for terrorist organizations and activities that threaten peace and stability in the region. And Indonesia also hopes that human rights, especially the rights of women and girls, are continuously respected and promoted.
Today we also discussed Afghanistan and the need for the Taliban-led regime to respect the rights of women and girls. Indonesia has a significant role to play as a Muslim country with a strong voice on these issues.
Retno Marsudi made the comments after meeting with Australia's Foreign and Defence Minister WHO are visiting or who are visiting Jakarta to bolster security ties. Marsudi said Indonesia is closely monitoring the situation in Afghanistan.
Meanwhile, Australia and Indonesia will increase cooperation in defense training and strengthen their cooperation as well in the fight against terrorism and COVID-19. Foreign and defense ministers from both countries have held face-to-face talks in the Indonesian capital for the first time since before the pandemic began. Let's listen in.
Australian support and participation in our peacekeeping operations. Also, Australia has donated 15 armored personnel carriers, the Bushmaster, and we are also discussing the procurement of more Bushmasters in the near future.
And Australia and Indonesia are committed to ensuring our region remains safe and secure, peaceful and prosperous. We will continue to work with other partners in Southeast Asia.
That includes, through our partnership, the sharing of 1 million AstraZeneca doses with Indonesia, following the delivery of a second 500,000 doses yesterday. These, along with Australian support for vaccine procurement, will ensure around 13 million doses are delivered to Indonesia ultimately.
And a group of Malaysian mothers won a landmark legal challenge on Thursday and overturning what they describe as discriminatory citizenship rules affecting women who gave birth overseas. Now, the rules had meant a woman with a foreign spouse who had a child abroad was barred from automatically passing on her Malaysian nationality. Similar restrictions did not apply to men from the Southeast Asian country who enjoy a straight path to citizenship for their offspring. Suri Kempe, president of NGO Family Frontiers, which helped bring the case to court, said that the judgment appeals to all Malaysian mothers, not just the plaintiffs in the case. Campaigners said the law had sometimes left women trapped in abusive relationships. If they brought their children back to Malaysia, the youngsters face obstacles in accessing public services like free education and health care. Women could apply for their overseas-born children to be granted citizenship, but authorities rarely agreed. Socially conservative Malaysia was among only a handful of countries worldwide with such rules, with campaigners long complaining they were discriminatory. There was no immediate reaction from the government, and it was not clear whether they would appeal the ruling.
In other news, the death toll from a devastating prison fire in Indonesia has now risen to 44, according to authorities, as families rush to submit DNA samples to identify the inmates' remains. Now, the toll had stood at 41 a day earlier after the blaze tore through the overcrowded prison in Tangerang, just outside the capital, Jakarta, during Wednesday's early hours. But Justice Minister Yasona Lauli said 3 of the 8 seriously injured prisoners died in hospital Thursday. Authorities were still investigating what caused the fire, which spread quickly through the penitentiary while most of the prisoners were asleep, locked in their cells. The jail had just over 2,000 inmates, according to a government website, more than 3 times its intended capacity. The block where the fire broke out had a maximum capacity of 40 prisoners, but they were housing 120.
Malaysia's top Globe said on Friday that the United States has lifted an import ban imposed over forced labor allegations, a boost for the world's top surgical glove maker after multiple scandals. The firm has seen business boom during the coronavirus pandemic as countries worldwide rush to stock up on protective equipment. but it faced myriad controversies in the past year, with the U.S. banning its gloves over forced labor concerns and coronavirus outbreaks hitting its migrant labor workforce. And on Friday, Top Glove, which can make up to 100 billion gloves a year, said it was now allowed to resume exporting to the United States and selling its products here. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, had banned all the company's gloves from U.S. ports of entry earlier this year after concluding they were produced using forced labor. The firm said the agency had updated its finding after receiving additional information, allowing it to resume exports. Top Glove remains committed to the health, safety, and well-being of its people, it said in a statement, and the firm's shares were up more than 2% in Kuala Lumpur. There was no immediate reaction from CBP. And in an initial probe last year, CBP said it suspected there was evidence of debt bondage, excessive overtime, and abusive working and living conditions in Top Glove's production processes. Most of the company's factory workers are low-paid migrants who come mainly from South Asia. Thousands of workers were infected with COVID-19 last year when outbreaks hit their overcrowded dormitories. The company has pledged to improve its workers' living conditions.
Meanwhile, we have more updates on the Philippine weather. Storm Jolina, international name Ponson, has left 14 people dead and 20 injured, even as the country braces for another typhoon, which is Kiko, with international name Chantu, which even intensified as it further approached northern Luzon, according to the country's Weather Bureau and weather agencies. In a situational report, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said there were also 7 persons still reported as missing. 6 of the 14 dead were between 26 to 60 years old, 4 were infants, 3 were aged between 19 to 25 years, while the other dead was a young child. While Jolina has already left the country, the damage it left was considerable. Damage to infrastructure is at 30.675 million pesos, including damaged roads, school buildings, among others. Meanwhile, the country is still bracing for the onslaught of Super Typhoon Kiko or Chantu, which has slightly intensified as it threatens extreme northern Luzon. Pagasa warned of destructive winds in Santa Ana town, where around 35,000 people live, and the eastern part of the remote Babuyan Islands. Rough seas will throw up to 2.5 to 10 meter waves, and the Cagayan governor has ordered government and private sector workers, except those in frontline services, to stay home and fortify their houses. Now, for agriculture, the total cost of damage was over 256 million. It also damaged 6,423 houses, and that is for the storm Jolina.
More updates around the ASEAN region after this short break.
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime laws.
Tayo lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang
sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot. 92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa...
At itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. Continuing the first webinar entitled Unlocking RCEP for Business, Trade and Goods, held in July. The ASEAN Secretariat, in collaboration with the East Asia Business Council, held a second webinar on September 3. And this time, they focused on rules of origin, or ROO, and customs procedures and trade facilitation, or CPTF, of the RCEP agreement. In his opening remarks, Deputy Secretary General DSG for ASEAN Economic Community, Satvinder Singh, highlighted the importance of trade in goods for ASEAN and how the RCEP agreement can help ASEAN's trade in goods to expand. Take a look.
However, in 2020, as all of you know, due to the economic downturn caused by the pandemic, the numbers had gone down slightly to about $2.66 trillion US dollars. And I think this is why all of us in the ASEAN and our private sectors are truly looking forward to the RCEP agreement, hoping that it will, when it comes into force, help to contribute to our economic recovery and our resilience. And RCEP really aims to streamline the different rules that are existing today across all the participating countries into a single set of rules for the 15 participating important global economies of ASEAN, which includes Japan, China, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and of course, all of us, 10 ASEAN countries. But in order to take advantage of the opportunities presented by RCEP agreement, I think it's important for businesses to pay attention and to truly navigate the rules and measures related to the rules of origin and trade facilitation.
That even if there is an RCEP ROO, wherein most of the ASEAN plus FTA partners are already parties to RCEP, if you are an exporter using the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand FTA, or ATIGA, for example, and you are using those FTAs because the tariffs are relatively low at this point, that the ROO that will be used for those FTAs are not the RCEP ROO. You still have to use the ATIGA ROO and the ANZ FTA ROO. I'm just reminding us because you might get confused. For example, the trading under AKFTA, for example, we can say that we can use the RCEP ROO. Aside from the obvious that the greater number of parties will allow you to accumulate from more sources, RCEP has adopted a more trade facilitative, co-equal, and alternative rules for most products in the PSR list.
For me, what is even more critical is, the RCEP provisions themselves have committed time frames on, for example, 48 hours that goods should be cleared within 48 hours of arrival, right? And for express shipments within 6 hours of arrival. There are other commitments like the ability to obtain a release of your shipments even before you pay your duties and taxes. Interest to us, of course, for DHL is that RCEP specifically recognizes express clearance, so the ability to clear shipments, time-sensitive shipments. It makes provisions for de minimis thresholds.
A recent study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics suggests that the RCEP agreement will further expand trade among its members, directly contributing to their economic growth. Based on the study, by 2025, the RCEP agreement is also projected to boost its members' exports by over 10%, and by 2030, add around 0.2% to GDP growth in the region. The webinar also highlighted that the realization of RCEP's potential will depend on its timely entry into force and the full, effective, and inclusive implementation of the agreement by its members.
Important global economies of ASEAN.
Now, in other news, a German luxury car maker Porsche will open its first factory outside Europe next year in Malaysia, according to the officials, seeking to meet the strong demand in the Southeast Asian country. And the manufacturing site in the northern state of Kedah will carry out final assembly of specific models for the local market, the company and Malaysian officials said. Malaysian Trade Minister Azmin Ali said the move was a strategic decision by Porsche, signifying its commitment to build a long-term presence in Southeast Asia. Currently, Malaysians wanting to buy a Porsche, they have to pay high tariffs for imported vehicles. Other foreign car makers have long operated assembly plants in the country to serve the local market. Malaysia has a fast-growing middle class and has enjoyed robust growth rates in recent years, although a serious coronavirus outbreak has hit the economy hard.
In other news, the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, said the replication of the Regional Geographic Information Network, or RGIN, geoportal project in pilot regions 1, 6, 8, 9, 12, and 13 will help improve research and development and craft evidence-based policies in the country. In a speech during the virtual launch of the Geoportal Innovation Hub replication project on Wednesday, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Hendrik Chua highlighted the importance of digital transformation within the government to strengthen policymaking and improve public service delivery.
RGIN has been instrumental in improving the region's collection, management, and sharing of map data. This project has been effective in using Geographic Information System, or GIS technology, for planning and forecasting, problem-solving, research and development, decision-making, and illustrating patterns and stories. This has enabled members and stakeholders to have better access to map data using an automated and internet-based data sharing platform. With the RGIN Geoportal, we will be able to collect and analyze vast amounts of data in various domains, minimize information gaps, and create evidence-based policies. As we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, NEDA is putting innovation at the core of our efforts to successfully transition into an upper middle income country by the end of 2022. It encourages open collaboration among stakeholders in the STI ecosystem towards making government more transparent. This will help facilitate ease in transactions and foster better trust between the people and government institutions. The pilot implementation in regions 1, 6, 8, 9, 12, and 13 will also initiate a shift in mindsets to build a culture of using data science and innovation that will allow for effective planning and decision-making. This is crucial as we prepare for the regional and sub-regional development plans for the next administration.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program. Here in Thailand, a new COVID testing device that uses armpit sweat to take readings is shown in action, checking salespeople for the virus in Thailand's sweltering capital, Bangkok. The test is still in the development stage, but the developers say they hope it will be rolled out as an affordable alternative to more expensive swab tests that require lab processing. Let's take a look.
The chemical we found in the sweat that we collect from the people who got the COVID infection, we found that some particular compounds are quite different significantly from the normal one and the one got the COVID. And that leads us to kind of search for the detector around the world and see which one is quite sensitive to this type of compounds. Already got the detector that is sensitive, very sensitive to this type of compound. And then we can bring that one directly and then we modify with the filter, add it onto the machine with the portable platform. And then we just use that thing and try to analyze the sweat of many people. We analyze the sweat along with the PCR. We got only 2,000 people at the moment. And the relationship is about the 95%. This means that 100, when we analyze 100 people, and maybe 5 of them, you get the wrong result, and 95 is correct. The result will be shown like if you have negative risk, like no risk, the machine will show you 0.00 signal in the unit of the ppm of that type of compound. But if you got the risk, low risk, high risk, it will be some number, like 0.03, 0.05, or even above.
Professor Chadin said the test was 95% accurate, hopes it might be rolled out as an affordable alternative to more expensive swab tests that require lab processing. It is, however, still in the development stage, and the research behind it is yet to be published or peer-reviewed. The scientists adopted a device usually used to detect toxic chemicals in the environment. Subjects place a cotton swab under their arms for 15 minutes before the swab is put in a glass vial and sterilized with UV rays. The sweat test received the thumbs up from Bangkok market vendors, who said it was much more pleasant than nostril swab tests.
And Filipina-Canadian teen sensation Leila Fernandez advanced to her first Grand Slam final by defeating world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka of Belarus in the US Open Finals. Take a look. Now, the 19-year-old prodigy eliminated Wimbledon semi-finalist Sabalenka 7-6, 4-6, 6-4, and could capture her first slam crown on Saturday at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Fernandez will play for the title against the winner of a later semi-final between Greek 17th seed Maria Sakkari and 18-year-old British qualifier Emmy Raducanu. Fernandez, a 73rd ranked left-hander, made Sabalenka her third top 5 victim of the Open, having earlier ousted defending champion Naomi Osaka and 5th-seeded Elina Svitolina. Not since Serena Williams in 2012 at Wimbledon had a player beaten 3 rivals ranked in the top 5 at a Grand Slam. If Fernandez meets 150th ranked Raducanu in the final, it would be the first slam final between teams since 17-year-old Williams beat 18-year-old Martina Hingis at the 1999 US Open, and only the 8th all-team slam final in the Open era since 1968. So proud to be a Filipino. Thank you, Dave, for keeping me company today. Please keep safe and have a safe weekend ahead of you.
Thank you, Alma, and you keep safe also there in the Philippines, because here also it's drizzling and it's we experience rainy season here, or I mean rainy weather. So we really need to take care ourselves, especially if the COVID's still on the go. And that's the latest news. And stay updated around ASEAN region. This is Faye Barte once again from your EBC Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back on Monday. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.